This is Gamer Weekly, bringing you the latest of what the video game scene has to offer. On today's episode of Gamer Weekly, I have Barry from Fireproof Games, and we're going to be talking about their series, The Room. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gamer Weekly. With me today is Barry from Fireproof Games. Thank you so much for coming onto my show.
No worries. Happy to.
So, right off the bat, let's talk about Fireproof Games. How exactly did you guys get your start in making games?
The team that we have here, we all met about, 2004. We were working, we all joined Criterion Studios to work on the Burnout games. I don't know if you know them.
Wait, did you work on Burnout 3?
Yeah. We were in the Burnout 3 and Burnout Revenge and Burnout Paradise.
Burnout 3 is the best. Sorry to interrupt, but Burnout 3 is seriously the best racing game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, lots of people really like it. Yeah, that's cool.
So, but yeah, continue. Absolutely.
So we basically all met up in Criterion, and on Burnout 3, some of us had a lot to do with the game. Some of us only, for instance, I only came on when the game was finishing. But Burnout Revenge was where we all got together as a team. And basically, the 6 founders of Fireproof were the 6 lead artists of the environment art team in Criterion. So we used to design and build all the tracks. And then in Burnout Paradise, we designed and built the open world city. And that was basically our job. It was so it was an art job, but it was very design heavy, to sort of, and in some ways design led as well. And by that I mean that we designed everything ourselves. So it gave us a really good grounding in just sort of getting a sort of holistic view on all of the aspects of making video games. And we really enjoyed, it was hard work and everything, but we really enjoyed it, had a great time, and we were really into what we did, and we all got on very well. And then I think by the time we got to Burnout Paradise, we'd been there for 5 or 6 years at that stage, some of us. And we'd kind of run our course so that we were just exhausted, I think, to some degree. And the place wasn't a particularly nice place to work either, which didn't really help. And I think, at the end of Burnout Paradise, we then just started talking about, well, look, we could either go and work for another company, like say we walked into some other studio and said, hey, look, do you want to hire all 6 of us and we'll come on board? You know what I mean? So we were thinking of ways that we could stay together as a team, because the sort of outsourcing was really becoming big in EA at the time. And so people were getting posted to different projects, and we thought, well, we've been together for so long and we know so much about how to make games, and we don't really want to break up as a team. So we were trying to think of ways to stay as a team. And one of the best option that we came up with was, why don't we leave and form an art outsourcing studio, so that we sort of hire ourselves out to other game studios and help them make their games. So that's what we did. So we formed Fireproof Studios in 2008, I think, late 2008, very end of 2008. That was really the start of it. So we were basically a freelance art team for 3 or 4 years. In fact, over 4 years before we ever made The Room.
And so what did you guys work on up until you got up to the point where you were working on The Room?
We did a lot of, as you can imagine, jobs. I mean, what made us different probably to other outsourcing studios, we didn't want to become a big outsourcing business. We did it with the goal to make our own video game. So the whole point of starting a freelance business was, well, maybe in a few years we'll save up enough money and we can make an Xbox Live game or a PSN game, as an indie studio. So that was always our end goal. But after 3 or 4 years in the business, what made that more difficult was we didn't want to grow the studio, because we didn't want to become an outsourcing business, if you know what I mean. Like, outsourcing businesses generally work on scale. So the way you make money is by scale. So you have to hire a lot of people, right? A lot of people, a lot of throughput, because your margins are so low. The only way to make real money is if you have a big business doing it with lots of people working for you. And we didn't want to do that, because we wanted to be ultimately wanted to be a games company and not an art outsourcing company. So we kept our studio really small for the whole time. And I think in the first 4 years, we only hired like 3 people, maybe 4 extra, instead of maybe the 40 that we should have, And so we were a boutique operation. But what that meant was we were able to work on some really, really amazing games and get some really great relationships with developers. So we did a lot of work with Little Big Planet. You remember that game?
I do.
Yeah.
I was really bad at it.
Yeah. We did a lot of work for that and for Little Big Planet 2. And then we also did a lot of racing games. Blur, we worked for those guys, and the Black Rock guys. Bugbear, who do Flat Out. And so we did a lot of racing game stuff as well. And then we did sort of random things, like we worked on the Muppets Connect game for Microsoft. And so we really got around, and we did everything from cartoon graphics to photoreal graphics to very stylized to historical recreations to we kind of went all over the shop, and it was a really, really good experience for us, because in Criterion we were really good at what we did, but all we did was build tracks and buildings. So it was we really got a good spread, I think, over the next 4 years when we started Fireproof, and we started doing very, very different, stylistically different games. And then we also always, the other way that we stood out as an art outsourcing company was that design was very much part of what we did, part of our skill set. And we also pushed our clients to get us involved with the design side of what we were doing as well. So for instance, with Little Big Planet, we had to build the backdrops to their levels, and so what we would do is go up and say, have a meeting with them, discuss ideas, and then we would go away and design the whole thing for them, and then come back and present it back to them, and they would go, that's cool, go away and build it now. And we were like, okay. Whereas normally when you're doing an art outsourcing job, you really have the worst jobs. Like, so you're building 1,000 lampposts, 1,000 trees, 1,000 dustbins. That's really where the art outsourcing business is like. Not always, obviously there's high end stuff as well, but we didn't want to do that kind of work. We wanted to do real sort of heavy lifting central gameplay work that would really matter to our clients, and that's what we tried to do, really.
And so with the room, I'm guessing, so what happened was you guys were like, you know what? I don't really want to make a game about cars anymore. Let's try something different. So how exactly did the room become what it is?
There's something of that, something of what you say in it, but really it was much more practical. When we left Criterion to form Fireproof, mobile gaming wasn't a thing at all. It was, the way to be an indie team was to make an Xbox Live game or a PSN game on console. So, like we said, we didn't know anything about mobile. Mobile wasn't even really a proper gaming platform then. But when 2012 rolled around and we kind of realized, okay, we've been doing this for 4 years, we've made fuck all money. We had just under 100K in the bank after 4 years work, I think. We're like, okay, this wouldn't even pay for half of the development of a console game. So we literally cannot make a game with this money. So then we just thought, well, what about mobile? Mobile has become big now. And also Unity, the Unity engine had just come out, which was, cost next to nothing to use. So we were like, so both of those things together made it possible for us to go, well, all right, we're not going to get to make the game we want, but what if we do something completely different and just try and make something on mobile? Everyone else is doing it. Let's give it a go. And that was really how it came about. And then I think the way we decided on the room was we did a bunch of round robin of ideas. We chose 3 to make, and what we were going to do was we were going to make a demo of one of them in January, of another one in February, and another one in March. And then at the end of the March, we would decide of those 3, which do we actually want to build into a real game and take to completion. And then we would spend the rest of the year doing that. And that's pretty much what we did. But the room, the second idea that we tried was called Puzzle Box, and it became the room. But that idea, it just immediately worked. Like I said, we didn't know what the game was then. Like it wasn't called the room, and it didn't have any point. There we didn't know it was going to be creepy. There was no music, no nothing. It was just literally about manipulating parts of puzzles with your fingers using the touchscreen. That was really what all the game was about. And then everything else about the game came as we made it. So we basically made up the room as we went along, which actually is just a very fun way to make games, to be honest, is to make it from the ground up and not from the top down. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
And so with the room, like what I've noticed, like because I've only beaten the first one so far. I am working on the second one currently, and what I really liked about it was just how fluid it felt. It felt like there was never a point where you were like, oh, I don't want to solve this puzzle. Like a whole time I was just like, what is this? What is some new contraption? Like I liked being able to move the box around and just find new different things that I didn't find before. Sometimes I had to use hints because sometimes I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But
sometimes life is like that.
Sometimes life is like that. You just don't know what you're doing. And I just liked how fluid everything was. Like so I guess with like you guys just kind of working as you were going on with the game, it was just like, okay, that's how the fluid of it came about? Or like how exactly did the puzzles and everything for the game come to all together, like for this box?
I think Mark was our creative director, came up with the idea, and I think he probably already had in his head a few ideas about what would work and what wouldn't, in terms of like where the puzzles could go. But really it was trial and error. It was, we would play something, and if it worked well, then it would probably inspire other ideas. And I always say to people that one way to know if an idea is good is if it inspires other ideas quickly and easily. And the room really did. Like as soon as we started making it, we just never really suffered for ideas or what to do next, or we were never in a position where we were going, what do we do next? We were just always like, oh, let's do this, let's try this, let's try that. So that's what I'm saying. It was very organic. Like apart from the very base root idea of the game, we had nothing worked out, and everything was thought about after the fact. We thought it all up while we were making the game. We suddenly decided one day, oh, it'd be cool if it was creepy, and then the next thing you know, we're hiring someone to make creepy music, and we're making all the visuals dark and everything. You know what I mean? So it was really fun like that. There was no. It really wasn't very planned at all. It was much more like, let's start this. It's already cool, so let's just continue on and see where it goes. And then we just relied on our own sort of sensibilities to, our own practical, sensible attitude that we would bring to any job we were doing, right? Whether we worked in EA or we were working for a client or something like that, which is just to say, make it slick, make it flow really well, make it so that, when we used to make Burnout levels, we used to, one of the big watchwords we had was baby proofing, which meant that all of the toughest corners would always have Armco around them, and that Armco you could never really crash into. And we used to just call it baby proofing, and all it was doing your best to make sure that the player who's flying around that track has the best time they can and isn't getting snagged on tiny little things, isn't causing the car to careen off the road. Or it was just basically about let the player have some fun with the mechanics of the game. And that's basically what Burnout was about. It was about, letting the player go mad and then invisibly protecting them from the environment in ways that they don't notice. And the flow of the room would have come from that way, where we were like, we never want a puzzle to be so hard where players are just banging their heads against the wall. But at the same time, we want to hide that from them. So we have to make them, we want to make them to a certain degree difficult. So we really were with the room. We were just applying lots of knowledge that we'd already learned from hundreds of other games, and not just our own work, but the games we play at home. Everyone you don't have to be that smart to know what would make a particular mechanic work versus what wouldn't. And that's it. We just thought very practically about it. Is this nice? Does this feel nice to use? They would constantly ask yourself questions like that, and that's what we do all the time.
So all those times where I felt like I was really smart when I was putting those puzzles together, really, you were just like, Yeah. No. You're smart. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Totally didn't plan that.
No, that's something we like. In theory, we probably would have known that was a good sweet spot to kind of reach, but that really was something that we were kind of surprised by when the game came out. Lots of people said that it makes you feel smart, but many people comment on the fact that it's not annoying. And so clearly there's an awful lot of people who are big fans of puzzle games who have terrible problems with completing puzzle games, because they said that the constant thing we hear about our game is it's not too easy, it's not too hard, it's just right, which you can interpret as sounding bland, but really it isn't. What it does is it gives people the enjoyment that they need out of the mechanics that are there, which is just the same as in Burnout. If you in Burnout, you could move faster in Burnout than any other racing game on the planet. But if you could move at 280, 300, 400 miles an hour on any other racing game, they wouldn't have got 2 seconds around the track without crashing, right? So it's taking that idea of, no, the idea of Burnout is to allow the player to have the feeling of going at 400 miles an hour. So you have to allow them to get to that point, because when it gets to that point, that's when it's at its most fun. And so you have that same attitude with puzzles in the room, which is just like, you have to allow the player leeway, a sort of wide enough runway that they can enjoy the mechanics for what they are. So they're not sitting there banging their head against the wall going, this one tiny thing is just stopping me progressing. Now, obviously, you're still going to have points in the game where that does happen, but that's cool because that's part of a puzzle game. It has to be hard in some places, but the reality is it's difficult. Where one man's easy is another man's difficult, and one man's difficult is another man's easy. People's brains work so differently, and people's personalities are so different that they will get stuck at totally different random points in the game, which you never could plan for. So. Yeah, I think we just tried to bring an awful lot of practical thinking, and also we try and think like gamers ourselves. Like, we try and think like what we like when we're playing games, and that's actually quite easy to tap into. That's in terms of judging whether or not something works or not. I mean, it's quite easy for me or anyone else who's playing a game to go, I mean, think about it, right? If you're playing a game that was kind of like Dark Souls but wasn't as good, you'd be sitting there going, oh God, in Dark Souls it does this and it doesn't do it here. That naturally comes right to your head when you're playing a game that's not quite as good as the best in the genre. So that's what, and we're just trying to listen to that voice all the time in our heads when we're making games, which is like, is it the best? Is it as good as the best? Does it feel as good as the best? If it's not, it isn't good enough. But it's not like we're sitting here whipping ourselves. We try and do good work from the start, and Mark is pretty meticulous. In fact, all the designers here are pretty meticulous, and they, no one goes off half-cocked. They all try and do sensible. They believe in the work that they're putting out there, but it doesn't always work. But that's okay too. The idea is to just keep churning through it until you get a string of ideas that work together. And that the flow then becomes part of how you sell those ideas. Really, is not to put constant blockers in front of the player, and to allow them to enjoy the world, to enjoy the mechanics, to enjoy the sort of beautiful objects that we give them. We want them to be able to play a bit. We don't want them to be sitting there, watching a static screen for half an hour. That's just not interesting.
And you guys are currently working on another sequel to The Room.
Another Room game. I wouldn't say it's a sequel, but it's another Room game.
This one is called The Car or something. No, I'm just kidding. Escape the Car.
No, but that's a good guess. It's a good guess. But no, it's another Room game in the Room world. It'll be very familiar to people who know the Room 1, 2, and 3, but it's not the Room 4. Put it that way.
It's the Room -1.
Yeah, it's the next room over.
Yeah, it's the bathroom.
Maybe we should just call it Room Next. How about that?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Since Peori.
The Room Reloaded.
Yeah, there you go.
So something I've noticed too with The Room and the success that it's had is that it's seems like one of the few games of the App Store that costs money that does well.
Yeah.
What is the secret behind that, and what gets people to the point where they actually want to spend the $1 to $5 for the game?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, because on the one hand, we can look at our success. Like when the first game came out in the end of 2012, we got Editor's Choice in the App Store, and that was basically like our meal ticket. That just changed everything, right? Because up until that very point, all we were a small group of artists in the UK who had no money and no backing and no publishers, and who were just releasing another game out into the ether of hundreds of thousands that were being released that year. But Apple really liked it, and they featured it, and we didn't. We were as surprised as anyone that happened. So that gave it an initial push, and it did really well for us. And then at the end of the year, Apple awarded it the iPad Game of the Year, which then made sales go really big again. So we got two really big sort of beats of sales of a week or two of sales in the life cycle of the game, only like 2 months apart or something. So what that meant was at least put the game in front of a lot of people's noses. A lot of people bought it on the back of that. And then I think from there, what happens is I think we kept our audience, right? We sell more or less the same amount of each one, which tells me that,
that everyone's coming back.
That they keep coming back. It's the same people, that they keep coming back. And we never have spent, like Fireproof ourselves, we don't do any marketing or PR. We do PR as in we talk to journalists and whatever. We don't spend money on PR or marketing. We never have. So everything we gain from the app stores, from Google and Apple, really are just we have a bit of a fan base, I guess, now, and they pretty eagerly await the next one. So that's about as good as you can hope for. The problem, I guess, is with when you're asking about other games and why is it so rare. The paid game market is just very small compared to the free to play market, and there's lots of reasons why that could be, but one of them is certainly because the paid games were abandoned by the games industry a long time ago, years ago, really around 2012, when we first released The Room. There was just a huge, rush away from paid and into free to play, because games like Clash of Clans and other free to play games had come and made just ridiculous amounts of money. So really what happened was that, the whole industry just basically, dropped paid on its ass and went the other way and never came back. So we're in this strange situation where paid games on the mobile stores are really just the world of indies now. I mean, it's basically just people like us. And then, small indies like Nintendo, who just recently...
I've never heard of that company.
Yeah. They, I don't know, made some game about plumbing or something, I don't know. Yeah. But even that wasn't, it was still in the free charts. It didn't appear in the paid charts, right? Because it was still a free game, free to download with one big IAP. But it's considered to be a paid game because it's just a $10 single fee. So... that's great to see, to be honest. It's great to see that someone like Nintendo will come out and say to people, you know what, you really should be paying for these games because we don't want to make it into a free-to-play game because that's a very different game. Because this is one of the things that we try and get across to, to the industry and maybe other developers and stuff. It's so common that paid games and free-to-play get lumped in as if they're all in the same boat, just because they're on the same device. They're on mobile. But actually, a paid game on mobile has probably more in common with a paid game on PC or console than it does with a free-to-play clicking game on mobile, right? But that's not how the press sees it and how the industry sees it. They just see it as, paid games are underperforming compared to free-to-play mobile games. Whereas my attitude would be, but they're not. They're not even in the same ballpark. They're different audiences. They're they're just completely different experiences, made for different reasons. It's and that's a problem. People don't really want to acknowledge that, I think.
How do you feel about the free to play market?
In what sense?
Just I guess like overall tactics and everything that they do and stuff like. Are there free to play games that you feel like do the model correctly, and then are like which ones?
Yeah.
So like which ones do you feel like
sure.
are the ones?
I see what you mean. You can argue that. I mean, back in the day, like I said, 2011, 2012, there was a point to arguing about free to play and paid in that sense, but there isn't anymore because the market is where it is. So, having a view in free to play only matters as much as how good the games are. And so, if you put a really good game in front of me, I don't care whether it's paid or free to play. It doesn't bother me. What bothered me about the mobile market, and this is especially true in free to play, was the amount of Me Tooism, right? And there was just no innovation. No one had any belief in the platform really to try and make anything interesting. It's like they just gave up, and abject copying of other people's ideas and mechanics and stylization and themes and everything just became the norm in mobile in a way that I found just embarrassing. But I mean, that kind of stuff has always gone on in video games. But in mobile games, it was hilarious. Like, it was hilarious how little someone's game would appear next to Clash of Clans, and yet how much they thought it was different. Do you know? And I always found that just amazing. And so there's a part of the mobile gaming industry that we never felt comfortable with. We just don't feel like we're fellow travelers at all to those people, because we're just like, we're on two totally different wavelengths. I mean, to copy someone's game is just the height of embarrassment to us. It makes our skin crawl to even think of it. But to other people, they literally think you're a loser if you don't do that. So that's the mentality that I constantly meet all the time in the industry, and I sort of back away from it. Really, we all do. We don't really want it to do with those people because we don't really think we're motivated in the same way. It's almost like we're not in the same medium. It's like they're in a business, we're in a medium. That's almost what it feels like.
And have you seen anybody like copy your guys' games at all, or have you?
Yeah, we've seen definitely people being influenced by it for sure, but we haven't seen any rip-offs yet, which is good. but there is one being made in China, we've seen, which is more or less a direct carbon copy, and there is one being made on PC on Steam, which is a direct carbon copy. Everything but the name. It's totally ripping us off. And in fact, they were very cheekily, trying to tag onto our Twitter accounts and stuff like this. It was really bad form. Do you know what I mean? And it's just that mentality. We just have no respect for that. It doesn't. It's a different thing. Like, I can say this as an artist. When you're growing up, the first thing you do is copy the artists you love. That's just so normal, and it's actually a way to get really good. So there's nothing wrong with copying stuff. Even really quite faithfully, but where I have trouble with that, or where I find it a problem, is when people try and carry on as if what they've done is just as worthy as the original. Right, that annoys me because that's just totally different. It's not the same thing at all. I mean, if you're making something that's a copy, or say a retro game that's just amazingly influenced by other games, that can be a beautifully executed piece of work. Showing off lots of talent and making the team learn an awful lot, but they're not pushing it as much as people who are making new things. And so we're just more into stuff that's new. So we're interested in teams that push things, that change things, that are just not listening to the business wins in the industry, which are just so mediocre. It's like everything they ask is mediocre, and I don't think the audience wants mediocre. I think they deserve much better than that, and this is why so many games fail. right? It's not because they're bad or they're badly made. It's just because they're not putting the effort in to really surprise the audience. And I think that's a big part of success, really, is surprising the audience, making them sort of see what you do as new in some way. Not new as an original, but just different to what other people are doing. I think difference has always been pretty important.
So this is going to be my final question, but I'm always curious about this. Every time I try to tell people about The Room, and I'm like, yeah, you should check out The Room. It's really good. They always think that it's the movie.
You mean the movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
How often do you guys?
Oh, we used to get it all the time. And I'm sure when the new game comes out, we get another round of those jokes again. But so many, like if you go back and look at the reviews of The Room 1 and The Room 2, especially, like every comment, the comment section under every review was just people just quoting the movie and saying, "Oh, I'm so bummed. I thought this was actually the game of the movie." But it's funny. We didn't really care about it. We knew that the movie existed when we named it, but we didn't really care because because if you have a hit, it doesn't matter, right? Because if the game is a hit, then no one really cares that it sounds like that daft movie, and that turns out to be the case. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure if you go up to a random web browser and just type in The Room and do a search, there's a good chance our game will come up just as much as that movie now, which is, I don't know, says something, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Not at all.
If you guys want to check out The Room, it's on iOS and it's on Android, and I believe it's also on Steam.
It is, yes. The Room 1 and 2 are on Steam, and then the Room 1, 2, and 3 are on iOS and Android. And Amazon devices. If
you like puzzle games, I highly suggest that you check out The Room. It's a really awesome game, and play it with headphones because the sound design is fantastic.
Thank you, but definitely play it with headphones because it's supposed to be a bit spine-tingly, a little bit creepy, so it all helps.
And you feel good when you solve the puzzles too. So they're really awesome. Definitely check it out. And thank you guys so much for listening. You can find the show on SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, and your mom's toaster. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.